Welcome to How to Run a Successful Consulting Business Part 2. This video, we're going to dive into how to sell your consulting services. Get ready. So in part 1, we covered how to develop the foundation of your consulting business from the inside out, including your brand and your marketing. And now here, once your brand and marketing are underway, check. Now it's time to look at how to actually sell when you get a hot prospect in front of you. The problem that I ran into when I was first starting out as a consultant, and actually for many years, and the problem that I see a lot of other consultants do, is that they spend forever on the sales process. The bigger the client, it seems the longer they spend. And I think that on the one hand, of course, it's true that sometimes bigger clients have lots of layers of approval and, it's sometimes a big decision or a big ask. I don't think that it needs to take that long. What I've discovered is a model or a system for sales that I think works way better. And I personally, I don't know about you, I like to get paid right away. I don't like to spend several weeks or even months trying to get to the point where I get my first payment from a client. So in this model that I'm going to teach you, the whole idea of it is getting to that initial payment fast. So here's my process. There are 4 steps. The first step is discovery. Discovery is the part that often goes on forever and ever. And in my world, discovery should be the shortest part of the whole process. So the discovery is the part where the client is telling you what they want and need, and it's where you present your very first offer. So in discovery, what can happen is that you end up going back and forth with the client over and over. The client tells you what they want and need, you go write together a proposal, present it to the client, and maybe in the proposal you put together all the things that they need to do, and you should do this and do that. And then you come back and say, I need to talk to you a little bit more. Can you tell me more about this? And then you go back and maybe you revise the proposal and then you send it to them and then they sit on it for a while. And then they write back, no, we don't need this, or we do need that, or can you drop the price? And then you go back and you revise stuff. That's the typical proposal process. And it's a pain in the neck and I hate it. Instead, what I recommend is consider what I call the one call close. Or at least that being the goal. It doesn't actually have to happen that you close the deal in one call, but that you close the first small part of the deal in one call so that you're getting paid for that discovery process. So the way that I like to do this is I have the initial conversation with the client, about 45 minutes, maybe an hour, and somewhere around the 45-minute mark, we switch gears and I say, all right, I have a pretty good idea of what you want. And the way I work is, write that down. The way I work is I start with a discovery process. In that discovery process, you and I are going to have a few conversations. You might interview some of their top people. That's where you do the work of the discovery to create the analysis that gives the client the clarity of what needs to be done. And you can charge a fee for that that's smaller than what we would charge for the whole project, but that gets you going. That gets you paid essentially to write a really robust proposal. And it has the added benefit of when the client pays you for that work, they take it much more seriously. They're much more likely to value the proposal itself. So I recommend charging a fee of like $5,000, maybe $10,000 for a bigger client, $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 for that upfront piece, which is your work to do the analysis and to really get a good sense of what needs to be done. What is the scope of work? And the thing is, this part of the process is valuable whether you keep working with the client or not. You hand them this over and they could take it and maybe they could implement it even without you. Now, I know that might sound like a bad thing, but the fact is most of the time you do this part for free and still don't get the client. Right? So this way you get paid for it and the client is more invested, and actually the chances that they'll hire you to do the rest of the project are much higher. So the discovery phase is where you get paid to basically figure things out and present a proposal. The next phase is the design phase, where they hire you and they say, yeah, let's keep going. And they hire you to design out the actual program and to actually design what needs to happen, all the steps, all the pieces. And that by itself could be a deliverable in and of itself again. So in the design phase, that's often where you're doing more of the interviews, more of the work with the team, more of the deeper analysis, and you're really recognizing what are the entrenched issues and setting yourself up, and this is really important for a successful consulting business, setting yourself up for a long-term relationship with the client. The discovery process was about creating a quick, let's get in there, here's something of value, here are your answers. But the design phase is actually building out what needs to be done in the business and starting to do it. The third step is what I call the diligence. And this is the doing of the work. This is the implementation part. This is the weekly check-ins or tracking or whatever, the workshops you're going to deliver, the trainings, the HR hires, like anything that you actually do, implementation comes in this part, what I call the diligence. That's where you're diligently working and executing the project. Now, before I go on to the last part of the 4-step process, please remember to subscribe right now to my channel so that you'll get notified when part 3 of this series comes out. And the final part of this selling process is the deliverables. That's where you deliver any of the materials or tools that you've developed that are now theirs. So there are often deliverables, and actually every step along the way has deliverables, but you want to make sure that you've delivered everything that you promised. I like to keep some sort of checklist and go back and just make sure I've done those things and share with the client when these things have gotten completed. So that's a 4-step process for selling and delivering consulting services and setting yourself up for those long-term monthly recurring revenues, which are really the foundation of a stable and sustainable consulting business. Now let's talk a little bit about what to charge. I made a few mentions earlier of a few numbers, and really it's very hard for me here to tell you without knowing you or what you do or what the value proposition is, what you should charge. But I will say this. Most of the time, most consultants that I come in contact with, I can tell that they are undercharging for their services. So here's my mantra. Ready? You might want to write this one down too. Don't charge by the hour, charge by the outcome. You'll probably hear me say this in so many of my videos because it's such a powerful thing to remember. When you charge by the hour, you're selling your time and your effort, and you can only ever make more money by selling more hours. But if you charge by the outcome, then it doesn't matter how many hours it took you to get that outcome, it's still worth what you charged, as long as the outcome is worth that. I'll give you an example. I worked with a PR consultant at one point in my career, and I worked with a few PR consultants. One of them charged me by the hour. So she was diligently reaching out to media and doing all the homework and creating the lists and sending out the press releases, and I would get these bills. Oh, I worked 15 hours this month. And I'm like, but we didn't get any media. She's like, sorry, I can't control the media, but I did the work. And then I met this other consultant at an event, and she said, oh, I charge for placement. Meaning, like, she doesn't charge for the hourly work of doing the grunt work. She just charged when she got you an article. I was like, great. So I told her, let's work together. She gave me a list of media. I checked off the ones that I wanted. And we made an agreement that for certain media, I would pay a certain amount of money. Outcome. Well, within a few days, she reached out. She's like, I got you into the Miami Herald. So I had to pay her $1,000 to be on the front page of the business section of the Miami Herald. Now, $1,000 for the business section of Miami Herald was totally worth it. And I was like, that was really fast. She's like, yeah, I just made a phone call to my friend over there at the editorial desk. That's all it took, one phone call. If she had charged by the hour, she would have made maybe $200. But because she charged by the outcome, she was able to make so much more. Same for you. Charge by the outcome instead of by the time, and you can raise your prices as long as what you're delivering is highly valuable. That's all for part 2. I hope that was helpful for you. And now get ready for part 3, where we're going to talk about how to raise your prices even more, how to give yourself even higher value, and also how to grow and scale your successful consulting business. See you there.